During all these talks in the last few days that were so intense, and you talk about so many things that I'm still thinking about, and I suppose that most people who attended the talks have also a lot to think these days. But I wanted to talk about how it was that you decided to attend these events of the 40th anniversary of punk in Argentina, in Brazil, in Mexico.
Well, I have to say that it didn't even occur to me that it was a 40-year anniversary of punk. And it doesn't interest me that it's a 40-year anniversary of punk either. So, I mean, I was sort of unaware of it. So, I was asked to do some stuff in London and didn't, because it was just a tourist event. I don't know how it is in South America, but it was just a bit of sort of commercial nonsense in London. Yeah. I mean, the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, now Foreign Minister, was the guy who sort of supported the idea. Well, I mean, when the Mayor of London, who's a sort of Eton-educated, Oxbridge, wealthy snob, starts promoting punk events, and I think you have to ask pretty serious questions. So, it was absolutely nothing at all to do with that. I mean, the reason I was in Argentina, the reason I was in Brazil, and the reason I'm here is because of people, and people I like and want to be with. And share things with.
Yeah.
Which isn't going to have a lot to do with anniversaries of punk, quite honestly, because I'm not particularly interested in talking about, something that happened 40 years ago, because I don't think it's relevant anymore.
No, yeah, that was, you made it very clear in all these days what your interest was and the points that you are trying to make. But I'm also aware that quite a few people, or many people, were maybe expecting you to talk about other things, and that was the interesting point, that it felt as if you were pulling down stereotypes and making clear that we should pay more attention to what we feel and develop in that direction, instead of paying so much attention to what punk or hip hop or rules of different ideas we may want to follow.
Answer to that, I mean, I sort of see myself as a deconstructionist in the sense of removing illusions, removing pretenses, removing vanities, my own primarily, but equally, if people want to listen, maybe I can help them, if they want to, remove some of their vanities and pretenses and illusions. And it's my only interest really, is to get down to what's actually happening. I mean, if I was to, it's absurd business of celebrating something, the anniversary of punk. Well, if I represented that, how could I be the person I am? I am the person I am because of this moment, and this moment determines the person I am. So I'm not going to travel, 6,000 miles or whatever it is to talk about something that happened 40 years ago that I'm not interested in and doesn't represent me. And anyone who sort of hangs on to ideas of themselves, because that's what it would require me to do. I mean, I'm not Penny Rimbaud from Crass. I'm Penny Rimbaud from Penny Rimbaud. And I'm not even Penny Rimbaud. Penny Rimbaud's just a name I give this voice. I mean, I don't know who's speaking, and I don't mind who's speaking. It's certainly not me, the ego, because sometimes I disagree with it. So what's disagreeing? The ego's disagreeing with what I'm saying because it doesn't like it. Tough. So those are just manifestations. Penny Rimbaud of Crass is a manifestation. The Crass bit's a manifestation, the Penny Rimbaud bit's a manifestation. They're all inventions, they don't mean anything. They're the things that keep us apart. And one of the things I really resent is the way that, Penny Rimbaud of Crass gets all this respect and is expected to have lots of sensible intelligent things to say. Well, Penny Rimbaud from Crash said what he said 40 years ago. And Penny Rimbaud from Penny Rimbaud, who's sitting here now, doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't pretend to know what he's talking about. Just as Penny Rimbaud of Crash 40 years ago didn't know what he was talking about. He just talked.
But you have a message.
I don't have a message at all. I mean, I am a vehicle for a message. Penny Rimbaud. The ego doesn't have any message at all except self-enlargement and vanity.
You talk a lot about ego and how to deconstruct the ego and find your real self. And it's difficult to see what is the ego and what is the real self.
I don't think it is really. I mean, you can tell the difference between ego and the real self because you can hear it. I'm hearing it right now coming out of my mouth. But, you know, I'm using my ego. I have to. How else can I manifest out of the silence, out of the emptiness, where I belong and where I exist? I don't exist here. I don't exist in this manifestation. This manifestation is quite simply what I put on in the morning, the same as I put some clothes on, I put on this manifestation, Penny Rimbaud being Penny Rimbaud. Well, there isn't a Penny Rimbaud. Penny Rimbaud is a totally egotistical device. How one trains, or how the ego becomes trained, or how one recognizes that actually everything in the material world can be no more than egotistical construct, thus, like the Buddhists would say, an illusion, means we're actually not even moving in any real space. I said it was chapter 3, didn't I?
It's difficult. This is very difficult because I try to understand. I think sometimes I understand a part of it, but to me it's like still like separated from what I call reality, that I know is a fiction, a construction, but still for me it's like very separated, all these ideas that you are talking about, and then what I see every day and all the situations in which we live that sometimes are more violent or acting with people who don't care about all this stuff we are talking about. And it's difficult not to live with having all that in mind, looking for who we really are, and then interacting with everyday things.
I really can't see why, because like that, there's within the sort of theatre, within the grand illusion, within the grand manifestation, I know what's happening as well. I'm aware of violence, I'm aware of war, I'm aware of joy, I'm aware of sorrow and suffering. But one's in a much better position to actually do something about that if you're not actually involved in it. My argument is that the egotistical self actually endorses that. One's coming in at the level that it exists in. Unless one can come from a different place into these areas of suffering, then actually all you're doing is simply adding to the suffering. Which is why so much sort of protest, so much objection, so much conflict is simply an endorsement of the very thing that it claims to be opposing. The army requires an enemy.
Yes.
That's what armies are for. They have to have someone to operate with. It's the same as doctors require illness.
And how you disarm an army, like how we can oppose violence or violent people or violent situations?
By appropriate action. I mean,
yeah.
The ridiculous idea that we can sort of plan how we deal with it if suddenly 23 armed people leap over this wall. Well, fear which is the very thing that so inhibits people's lives, is exactly that. Oh, blimey, maybe it's going to happen. You know, like it's a build-up of something which might happen, might not happen. Simple fact is most people live, or many people live, very much within the domain that not only might it happen, it is happening. In a constant state of fear. Whether that's fear of not being able to pay the rent, or being attacked in the street, or a new world war, of global warming, blah, 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 blah. And they're all just things that hold us stuck within it. And when we're stuck within it, we actually add to it. Although those things operate on fear.
Yeah.
They're bound to fear. And also makes our reaction almost guaranteed to fail. If someone starts being insulting to you and you respond, "Don't you talk to me like that," well, that's the beginning of an argument.
Yeah.
So effectively, how you respond in a personal level like that is actually a demonstration of what I'm talking about. If you respond angrily or with aggression, then you will start the process. And actually,
Yes.
most people who want an argument will push you until you do that. And that's the situation that people feel crushed by. They're pushed and pushed and pushed. You know, they're pushed by constant threat, constant this, constant... It really is endless, the threat, as you know.
Yeah.
And being aware of danger is not fear. Being aware that if you're walking down the street at night and it's dark and there's no one around, that you're possibly in a greater danger than if there's lots and lots of people in a well-lit street. It's sensible fear, if you like. So let's not call it fear, let's call it danger. Being aware of danger. That's a totally different thing. If you're aware of danger, you say, well, how can I make it better? So maybe you learn a martial art, or maybe you carry a pepper spray, or whatever you do, you've made a rational, sensible, reasonable way of dealing with a problem. Fear prevents one from dealing with a problem, because all you're doing is getting mashed by the problem, like in a personal domestic argument. And that's why I've been saying in these talks that really there's no difference at all between domestic argument and war. They're one and the same thing, and they damage in the same way.
Yeah, like violence starts in a home.
Yeah.
And that was something you were talking about yesterday or the day before yesterday, I don't remember, when you said that many men behave violently against women because it's a reality that in Argentina, Mexico, we are suffering lots of violence, assassinations, rapes, and women are really in danger. You said that many men act violently because they know that the essence of the matriarchy is there, and maybe they can't stand it, or they don't know how to handle it. And all this you said about women is very important for us, because in many scenes, in different scenes, not just in the punk scene, whatever, sometimes we feel in danger because it's the real thing that we live every day. So your comments on that were very helpful. I don't know, I hope that make people start thinking differently or reconsider all these situations.
Well, I think that, I mean, men are utterly dependent upon women for their favourite activity, and that's sex. And they're utterly dependent, and they can't, it's a very different, male sexuality is a very different thing. It has to go out. It is an aggressive act in a way, because it has to penetrate. You know, so the whole architecture of sort of male sexuality becomes distorted. Men know they're on their own in that sense. They've got to find a mate somehow. I don't think that's something that women suffer from. It's something I've spoken with women about. You know, that A, they don't have the same sort of sexual motivation almost. I mean, I don't believe that men are in the least bit interested in procreation. They might be as an intellectual idea, or they might be as a sort of biological necessity, you know, because why indigenous families may have large families, because they know a large number of them are going to die very young. Although that's got nothing to do with sexuality. That's to do with actually function. And men are out on their own sexually, and they have a hard job of it. They have to hunt. Well, that's part of, you know, the violence of men. They're not very good at hunting. They're not very good.
You have sons, daughters. You ever wanted to procreate, to become, to go into a family, form a family?
No.
You've ever been interested?
No.
Why not?
I mean, I've had a sort of wonderful life. Very, very, you know, I've had my sorrows and I've had my joys, as we all do, and I've had my pain and I've had my pleasure. But, you know, I would never inflict that willingly or wishfully on another form. All of the things you're talking about, you know, the pain, the suffering, the threat. What if I was to have a daughter? Do I want her to have to live in this world? No, I don't. You know, it's a practical decision. You can't hide them away either. You can't think, oh, well, I'll go and live in a nice little commune in the countryside. It's still the same problems there, the same suffering. They're just sort of temporary escape zones. Nothing's changed by them. They're temporary escape zones. And they actually, in a way, endorse, again, the very thing that they appear to be criticising. And that's why, you know, yesterday I was talking about being very wary of community, the whole idea of community. Community is exactly that, it's a separate and very often isolated group of people. Well, another word for community is ghetto. And we don't have to look very far in history as to what happens to those communities.
But, so what is your idea of becoming related to other people? Is no community, is...
Well, we are intrinsically and symbiotically related to other people. I'm aware that I don't feel in any way separate from other people. Whether I like them, whether my ego likes a person or doesn't like a person is utterly irrelevant. Which is why I'm not interested in what my ego thinks about people. Whether my ego might fancy you, or someone else, or not someone. I'm not interested in that. Because there's something deeper. I know that existentially, the act is done. If you truly love, you don't need any of that stuff. I don't need any proof of the fact that I coexist. I feel at one with everyone. Even if I don't like them, I feel at one with them. And if we want to separate ourselves, then why would we want to separate ourselves? Because we want fun, we want pleasure, or we want pain. They're all the same thing. So we go out into the world and we manifest in that way. Boys go around and punch each other, or they fuck the first thing they can find, and they think that's a life. It's just a life I'm not interested in.
Yesterday we also talked about that sense of the punk community in Mexico, which is called like that. And you said that it can be like a process, a part, is something that you leave on the way to find something else later. And this sense of community make many people feel confident, maybe as even though it is a fiction, the identity, but many people still feel safe into that.
Well, that's the danger.
Yeah, I know it's a danger. I know, but sometimes it's like it seems to be that many people can't leave it apart. You get hold of it. I need this identity because it helps me feel somebody.
Yeah, but the identity actually diminishes.
Yeah.
By nature. That's why sort of mass protest is so ridiculous. Why do you need confirmation of what you feel?
Yeah.
The earth doesn't mind. You know, the sort of romantics, you know, can make fictions about Mother Earth. But we don't honour Mother Earth by not understanding her nature and being her nature. If we want to be separate from that, that's fine. You know, that's other people's business, not mine.
Yeah.
But to me, it's one huge fiction, one huge theatre. And I can engage in it, of course I can. I'm doing so at the moment to an extent. I think that in the approach to, I don't believe in any existent self. Like the thing, know thyself. You can't know thyself because you are thyself. Anything else is a diminishment of that. You know, so identity is an immediate diminishment of thyself, because thyself is all self. I have no question and no doubt about that. I mean, I have people disagree, but
Yeah.
I think it's so manifest. And people say then you can't do anything. You can't. You know, why aren't you trying to help? And why? You're not helping by confusing the issue. It's again back to appropriate action. You know, I've known you, you know, through Argentina. I remember a wonderful conversation we had when you were organising in March. And I very, very much respect that. But at the same time, you know, I remember saying, looking at one's complicity, to what extent do we create these situations? And we do have to ask that. And as we melt away our own fiction, our own engagement, and complicity is always the first one to go for it, to what degree have I contributed to this moment of crisis? To what degree have I contributed to this moment of violence? You know, the bad situations we get into. That's what I always do. It's always my immediate reaction. How have I orchestrated this? Not why is this person about to punch me in the face? More, why have I created this situation? To what degree am I responsible? And generally speaking, one will find some form of complicity, some form of responsibility in all of the things that you like to imagine you feel sorrow about. And that's the first real step towards the demolishment of illusion. And as it happens, you know, it doesn't change anything at all. It simply means that one is more able to cope, you know, because you're moving into the realm of actuality rather than fiction. You know, so if those guys come over the wall armed to their teeth to sort of blow all the hell out of us, I'm ready. I'm ready because I haven't got anything in the way. I'm not carrying a past saying, if they come over the wall, that's the past. They've come over the wall before, that's the past. And the future is totally blank, but we like to fill up. Fear it is totally dependent upon a future projection. You can't have fear unless you're projecting into an unknown future. Fear is based on an unknown future.
Yes.
So what are you talking about? It hasn't happened, so why are you making it happen? You're inviting it, in a way, you're inviting it to happen. And appropriate action just says no. Appropriate action is right this moment. How can you make love, or how can you make war? How can you do anything except in that situation now? Because that's actually where we're doing it, at each passing moment.
Yeah, but I think that too many times we don't think very deep. I mean, we act like automatically. Most people,
Yeah.
that's what I see. I mean, even.
Well, what is the sort of narrative that one is reacting around with that automatic reaction? What do you think is the...
I think that many times it's like too many things happening all day, not having enough time to be alone thinking. During the day, many people work many hours, then they want to forget about work, turn on the TV or listen to music or do stuff to forget about yourself instead of going deeper. So many times all these become like an automat person that is always repeating things.
But that's entirely... I mean, I was asking you, well, what's the narrative? I mean, the narrative is materialism.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted you to say it, but I've said it now.
Yeah.
And yes, that's how materialism, that's how it's structured, that's how it's maintained.
Yes.
I can't remember the exact expression you used, but, we're not happy, so what do? We go and watch. We watch the television, which is a product. It's further indoctrination, or we go out shopping, which is, further indoctrination. Everything actually is designed to keep you in that loop. Mm-hmm. Fear being the key one. I don't think it really takes a sort of brain surgeon to see that it's all very simple. We're making that choice. You can't say you're not, because you are.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Even I think people who study the brain are now saying that we are aware before we become cognitively aware of events, which is, of course, must be the case, because events occur before our awareness of them. Things have already happened. By the time we're reacting, it has to have happened, otherwise we wouldn't have anything to react to. Well, it's that little gap between the event and our reaction,
Yes.
which is the big danger point. And it's moving from reaction into event. That's the whole process. You're moving, that's inappropriate action, because here's what happens and here's our reaction. Well, it's too late. And that's the thing, that's the point, that's the moment, always, in every single step into the darkness of the future, into the absolute blank. The future is a sort of just nothing but infinite possibility.
Yeah.
It's nothing and everything, it's the absolute. And it's the absolute to which all of this fiction returns. And it's the absolute from which we appeared. So, as we step, each moment is actually that crucial. And if we're not prepared to accept that, then we're not actually taking life seriously.
Mm.
Well, okay, I accept that most people don't take life seriously. Well, that's not my problem.
Yes. And what about people who can't relax, or who are always more in danger than others, or live in difficult situations and can't make all this reflection on every little action of their life, or their daily lives.
I don't think that it helps. You know, it's a somewhat socialistic view to sort of talk about people. What about the people?
Mm-hmm.
What about them? And that's not a cruel attitude. It generally, the what about the people, as expressed by socialists, tend to talk about people. It's generally speaking rather comfortable people talking about rather uncomfortable people. In other words, it's intellectuals talking about poverty and working class problems, talking about people who are very capable of looking after their own lives in their own way, who don't need. I mean, the intellectuals and the academics are in a way the SS of the materialist world. You know, the SS secret, the Nazi. I mean, they're the super elite to keep it all in order.
Yeah.
So I haven't got much time for that sort of what about the people. Yeah, you can find what about the kid at the moment in Iraq who's having his head blown off. I know that's happening.
Yes.
And I know there's a guy on the end of the trigger. I know that's happening. You know, and as much as I feel pity for the kid, I feel pity for the guy with the finger. And I feel pity for the person who told him to be there. And I feel pity for the family, and I feel pity. And not in a sort of patronising way. I feel pity because they don't know love. Mm-hmm. And I can't do anything much about that, except be it. To manifest it, or allow its manifestation, and I allow its manifestation by not being myself. Because the moment I start being Penny Rimbaud, then I'm not allowing life to manifest itself. I'm in somewhere or other trying to condition and control the outlet. If you went to a cat balancing on a roof and gave it an identity, it would fall off in a second. It would lose its balance. And that's really, I know, you know, certainly since I've become more serious in my practice, how people are constantly trying to kick away the ground from my feet. Because they're threatened by that. They're threatened by the peacefulness. They're threatened by the calm.
Yes.
And they're more threatened by the fact they possibly even recognise there's nothing there. They don't want to enter into that, what they see as a void.
It's a fear that you are talking about.
It is, yeah.
And it's not accepting that other person goes deeper into that. It's like many people can't accept this sort of reaction.
You've almost sort of qualified the whole nature of violence, which is yesterday when I was saying that most male violence is actually their lack. Not the fact that they possess something, it's the fact that they feel dispossessed, and the only way of dealing with that dispossession, in their terms, is violence. Or reckless driving, or all the things boys do when they feel threatened. Mm-hmm. Threat, it has to be always lack of. It can't be anything else.
Yeah.
Well, by toning one's desires, I mean, one of the biggest decisions in my life that I made maybe 7-10 years ago was never to engage myself again in any form of romantic relationship. Which doesn't mean I don't have relationships, which doesn't mean I don't have sex. It does mean I do not engage in a fantasy.
But have you ever before had other sort of relationships, like other type of...
Yeah. You know, I fell for the illusion. And actually at the time could quite magnificently, philosophically justify it. You know, I used to sort of believe in the Romeo and Juliet syndrome. In other words, it's only through death that we can enter the universal. But, you know, the intimacy, you know, the sexual union, primarily it would be man and woman, but that's not necessary. But that union was a sort of moment of universality. This is what I used to believe, and this is what I used to promote, which, you know, I mean, I'm very aware that I now believe something and promote something different now. You know, things change. So I no more think I'm right now, or I as much think I'm right now as I did then. But anyway, So I used to believe that only through that sort of, sexual transcendence, could that sense of universality be achieved. And it was only really when I came to realise that actually is just using someone for the very thing you're looking for and taking from someone, the very thing that you're not looking for and taking from your own being. That actually we are totally equipped in that sense. That union is a circular thing and not a penetrative or a receptive thing. Which is why sex, is of no interest to me as such, because it's about something external rather than a, circular motion which one can have in any situation or with anyone. Something which doesn't require any physical involvement. In other words, which is what's happening.
You said something about feeling alone, naked, and proud. Is that the way you feel when you have all these ideas, you can look into yourself, you have time to do that, and you are making a choice of thinking in yourself?
No, not at all. I mean, I should have explained yesterday. The naked I meant was sort of naked mind as much as naked body. Totally, absolutely naked. And that's what I feel all the time. That can be, the curtains can be drawn across that, as they are at the moment, because I'm being required to behave in a rational, reasoned way.
Yeah.
And I'm very agreeable to that. I have no problem with that. But, I'm aware, it's almost like my vision is shadowed when I'm doing that. And if I allow that vision to open up, if I allow the manifestation of existence to come forward, then it's like a tempest. And I don't do that with people very often, or very, very rarely. I mean, that's what I do. Certainly I do it in that is constantly manifesting in Tai Chi, in every moment and movement, the sort of tempest of life, the force of the earth. And I feel that, in all my aloneness. And I know that's where we meet. Not you and I, but you and I and everyone. That's where we meet, and that's where we actually are. And it includes all of the sort of materialist manifestations, which is why they don't concern me. I don't react emotionally if I hear about some kid having his head blown off in Iraq. It's not an emotional feeling at all, any more than I get an emotional feeling when I heard a bird sing. I've got preferences, probably, but even those are damaging and dangerous.
And what are the important things, the stuff that you more care about in your life?
That. You can't go beyond that, really. The moment you sort of go beyond that, then you're in dangerous, stupid ground. And if we know that, then we just know how to move. I think there's 108 moves in Tai Chi, but the teaching is it's all one move. There's no point at which you can say, and it's impossible actually to ever, where's the move in that? There is actually, in Tai Chi, there are points at which actually something could happen if they were being applied. But actually, it's all one move. Well, that's what life is. It's all one move. It's all one moment. It's all one single moment. It's that. And I've come to know that, maybe in 10 years' time I'll be sitting here saying, yeah, well, I used to believe that that was that. And, I never stop. The moment something becomes a little bit established in my thinking, then I go back to my desk and I write down and I try to deconstruct it. I'm interested only... I expressed an absolute, it is an absolute that the world at this very moment is the only way it could be, because it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've now waited 5 seconds, and the world at the moment is, that's a sort of like an unavoidable truth. We're always in the only moment.
Yeah.
If we want to be casual about that, then that's the choice. I don't mind. People want to not even feel the moment, prefer to sort of go to a movie. That's their business. It's not mine. I don't prefer to go to a movie. I know what entertainment's about, and that can be, cheap talk, chit chat. I'm only interested if I'm going to manifest, through Penny Rimbaud being Penny Rimbaud, something, to look for something that has meaning, to share something, some moment that can create some sort of configuration which is better than this obnoxious separateness that people feel. And it is obnoxious to me. That's their choice, and I respect that, but it's obnoxious and unnecessary as well.
Do you have, I wouldn't say habits, things that you do every day, the practice of Tai Chi or meditation, or is something that you do every day, you share with other people?
It's something I don't like talking about, because it then appears to be promotion. And the one thing, I think a lot of people have tried in the past, to sort of share visions, share ideas, and they become, oh yeah, well, I follow Krishnamurti, or I follow...
Yes.
Well, that's the exact opposite of what probably someone like Krishnamurti would want to happen, but it happened. And I'm very determined. It has happened to an extent, that's the Penny Rimbaud Crush syndrome. And just as I want to deconstruct that, I don't want to allow anyone to start constructing a new sort of role for Penny Rimbaud to play. I'm not interested in that at all. And, I detest that idea, and will do anything to corrupt that idea. So to promote... So, yes, I meditate every day. I don't practice Tai Chi every day, except in my moving through the street or through the countryside. There are... and meditation is only, I do, sit silent, with a blank wall. But that blank wall, after years of meditation, this is the blank wall the same. I'm still sitting with a blank wall in front of me. You happen to be there, and that light happens to be there. It's a blank wall. Things are passing. It's just the same, and I don't necessarily, there are 1,000 ways that people can arrive at something. Who am I to say that's better? I don't think it's any better or worse. I personally never wanted to be a part of the material world. I never actually have been to any real degree. I've always been, no, I really don't like that, and finding a way around, out. And I guess by 74, if you haven't perfected that, or aren't close to perfecting it, then you haven't really spent your life very sensibly. So I'm not putting it forward as an answer. I'm putting it forward as an observation that there appears to be too much suffering. Actually, I could say there's as John Cage once said, there's the precise and perfect amount of suffering, because that accounts for this very moment. If the world is the only way it could be, then it would be very ungracious to say, yeah, well, it's not good enough. Well, actually, it has to be good enough because it's where we're sitting here. And it will go on being good enough because we're sitting here. Whatever's happening, we're sitting here, wherever that might be. So it's a sort of gracious acceptance of life, of what's happening, whether you are a materialist or a not materialist. It's still the same occurrence. And being realistic about it, in fact. Actually, I do believe that most of what I say is very rational and it's very logical. These are events, these are how it works. But if people choose to go on, disturbing themselves with it, then fine, maybe they've got some. Maybe it is good to go around shooting grandmothers, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I really felt it when you said, like being naked, proud or pride is something that I don't feel very often, and I don't use the word.
Well, I don't think you can be proud in the sense I'm trying to say, unless you're naked, like these trees are naked and proud, aren't they? Or these blades of grass, or those blackbirds singing and naked and proud. They're just life. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's absolutely true. That's a hard place to be. It's very much that place. It's very much that moment. It is that place, naked and proud. Because you know where, and it's not pride in the sort of human sense, it's just magnificent.
In being.
Yeah, magnificence, yeah. It's a state of joy. It is the state of joy, possibly. Because the moment one moves away from that state, then, the only way you can move away from that state is through projecting either into the past or the future. Which, of course, is how most people live constantly, with a foot in the past and a foot in the future. But, always, and the magnificent moment is always the one we're in. So, like I said earlier, it's very, very simple, really. This is it.
Yes, but the past conditions...
the ego.
The ego, yeah, I think that is the most difficult to recognize the ego and your real self, your heart. And you also talk about the importance of listening to messages. We have messages from within all the time. Maybe they manifest in different things in our body, in feelings. And sometimes we don't pay attention to the messages.
If you don't pay attention to the messages, which, I don't know whether they're from the heart or whether they're from the earth itself. Because I don't think they're separable, from life. We don't listen to the messages of life, then we will become ill physically, which is why there's so much illness, because we're not listening. A classic and wonderful example of that is, that when I first started practice, I decided I'd go on retreat, so I started going on retreats, Zen Buddhist retreats. And, after a year or two, I started feeling, I'm getting pretty good at this Zen stuff. Ego was starting to creep back in, and it was creeping into my practice. I would sit down feeling a little bit dignified and, do all my little puja bits and ring the bell and feel, I'm sort of a member of the club. And that continued for about 3 or 4 years of, feeling just a little bit pleased with myself. The ego will always try and find a leash to put you on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd gone I'd arrived at a state of joy, and the ego thought, yeah, I could deal with that one. You'll become a Zen master. And the net result of that was actually a heart attack. Because the message, I was ignoring the message. I was ignoring actually what Zen really is about, I in effect, it was the end of my relationship with Zen, because I realised that, you know, there were illusions within it that could allow that to happen, which there isn't in Taoism. Taoism is much more fundamental. There's no ritual, there's no anything. There's just the matriarchy, and, you know, like I said yesterday,
Yes.
I believe and know that the matriarchy, which isn't about power of women, it's the power of matriarchy, exists intact, and all the rest is bullshit. Well, I got involved in bullshit, and the natural result of that was a heart attack. And I do feel that, you know, I was waiting for a train when I had the heart attack, and the train came in as it was happening. And I actually almost could see the egotistical self, you know, because it had to get up that morning and had to travel back to London, you know, and the only way you have to use the ego to do those things, to go and buy your ticket, you know, otherwise you can't
Yes.
buy your ticket out of the emptiness. You know, so I actually pretty much could see myself, the ego self, getting onto the train and travelling away. And certainly that's what I increasingly sense, you know, after I'd you know, gone through all the stuff of the heart attack, you know, in the days following it. I was very aware that, you know, a load of baggage had gone. And that was that sort of, that is the materialist naked and proud. I was trying a really stupid trick with myself, you know, like, oh, well, I'm naked and proud, I can become. No, you can't. And it was the first time my heart screamed at me. It said, no, take that. And since then, I'm guided by my heart. That's over.
How long ago was that?
About 3 years, I think.
How did you recover?
Well, I didn't recover. That was the thing. You see, there was a good example there, because I'm having to use my ego to talk. My ego only knows itself. And where I feel joy, it will feel exactly what happened, where I'm almost tearful. Anyway, the recover. I kept getting people would write me, I hope you recover soon. And I kept seeing that, and I thought, hang on, this is recover. Why should I want to cover up again what had been exposed? You know, I had been made completely vulnerable. I mean, it was the heart attack itself, which was, you know, the most painful, magnificent, huge event that had ever occurred to this physical form. You know, I could only describe it as exquisite. It was beautiful. I mean,
Yes.
unbelievably painful. And it went on for about, you know, half an hour or so. And even with all the drugs and stuff they were pumping into me, you know, the pain was just extreme. But beautiful, because it was sort of like saying, well, actually, this is the strength of life. This is what life is. This is this glorious and magnificent force. You know, we've had to put it in, you know, like whatever it is, the message makers, whatever that is. But it's almost like, all right, we'll demonstrate you really what it's about.
Yes.
You can stand up and say naked and proud. This is it. And when I was saying about naked and proud is like a tempest, if I was to tear it away, then I would explode with the same force as that heart attack exploded. Which I can do on my own, but I won't do with other people. Generally. So that vulnerability is, I can remind myself very easily. I can simply recall on that sense of magnificence, of the power of life. which is also the power of death, of course.
Yeah.
And the equal beauty. And whilst I was actually in the heart attack on 2 occasions, or maybe even 3 occasions, I sort of went out, I died, and I was brought back. And at the times I died, I was floating, maybe 20 foot above my own garden. And the garden was just exquisite, the colours and the light, and it was just like heaven. But I wasn't there, and it was a strange feeling of I was seeing it, but I also knew I wasn't there. And that gave me an instruction, the lesson I learned from that. That's exactly it. I am seeing it, but I'm not there. Mm-hmm. And that's what I feel now. I am seeing it, I am relating, but I'm not there. Penny Rimbaud's there. Penny Rimbaud of Crass is here. Penny Rimbaud being Penny Rimbaud is there. But I'm not here.
Where are you?
I'm floating, within and as, the absolute beauty of all of it, be it life or death. I'm neither life nor death. I'm not alive and I'm not dead. I just am. And that's the it. If there's any it about what I feel, that's the it. It's neither this nor that. And it's neither everything or nothing. In Buddhism, there's an expression that form is emptiness and emptiness is form. Well, it's exactly that, and it's a constant circular motion, which can only be affected by that, by the appropriate action. And because we don't actually need or be aware of appropriate action, in other words, that which has a massive demand, we're doing that. That is effectively what's going on all the time. But it's only at dramatic points that we have to be aware of that. So yeah. In a funny way, maybe this is another discussion. Maybe we shouldn't have it on thingy, but no, we're not going to.
What were you going to say?
It was about the incredible correctness of the earth, how it is always in absolute accord. And there were thoughts that I'm not going to talk about because I need to look at them, and they're the ones that I'll take a lot of interest in, which is what I'll have got out of this conversation as much as anything else. Something else to start tearing apart or opening up. Mm-hmm. To do with weakness, because there's no such thing as weakness within the natural world. Weakness is, to do with our psychological condition. And I was just seeing certain comparisons between what viewed psychologically, things occur within nature, which if we want to sort of, put anthropomorphic interpretations on, we can do, but we're not. That's not correct. The cat has got no evil intent. It's not a killer at all. There's no death involved in a cat, catching a mouse. That's just what's happening. In the same way as the grass is growing, and there is a sort of human nature within that as well. We're not so very far from that, and that's where we are. But I wouldn't want to discuss it because it could go on. I need to study that. And it's probably
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Are you writing something? All of these that we've been talking about. Are you planning to?
No.
To do something with all your ideas? No.
No. I write aphorisms, which are sort of like little short thoughts, which are riddles and things that will confuse and worry and juggle people's minds. I'm not in the least bit interested in writing philosophical treatises or spiritual.
There would be another generation of people saying
totally,
that the new manifest,
the
new T-shirts with new slogans.
Yeah. So, no, that would be a sort of something I could never do and will never do.
But you agree on the fact that we are going to comment on all these talks and
well, I really
maybe write something about that.
Yeah, I came here to sow those seeds. you know, I mean, I know what, and I've seen what's happened to a narco punk in Britain, and I only wish that, you know, I'd moved in there 30 years ago, but I didn't know what to do. It took me 20 years sitting at my desk trying to work out a way of re-manifesting, you know, how can I come back after that? You know, what have I got to say? How can I put to rights what seems to have gone so wrong with it all? And, you know, and what we've been talking about is the way I dealt with that. And, you know, I can see occurring here or in Argentina, you know, the same things as occurred 20, 30 years ago in England. And therefore, you know, that the chance of feeling I have got something to say about it now, you know, it did take me 20 or 30 years to have the confidence to say, yeah, we can use that. Yeah, those were that was chapter 1. I, for a long time, was thinking it was a dead book. You know, I was thinking that, well, what I did then and what I was manifesting then was crap. It didn't work. But there was aspects in it which were absolutely spot on, like there is no authority but yourself. It has to be interpreted in a different way, and maybe I wasn't even aware of it myself at the time.
Yeah.
So sort of, yeah, there's bits, and I use bits of that old narrative, you know, to create the new narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, funnily enough, it took an enormous amount of confidence on my behalf in Brazil. I knew it was a, you know, tropical place, so I took my sort of white clothes because I know what it's like to wear black in real heat. You know, 'cause I always have worn black, and I do wear black. But in Africa, when I first went to Africa, I realised I couldn't wear black because I felt so uncomfortable. So I got white. So I took white in case I got overheated in Brazil. But I turned up at the festival, everyone in black, absolutely
Yes.
everyone without fail. And I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I had to, you know, I was staying in a little room a few minutes away from the festival. And I really had to go, I wonder if I dare, you know, actually go in and break the code. You know, because I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings or disturb anyone. I didn't want to upset anyone. I just wanted to be comfortable.
Yes.
You know, and I did feel really strange and awkward and realised I was sort of shining out like some sort of strange light in all of this darkness. And then I thought, well, actually, that's nice. You know, let's put on the lights again. You know, I mean, so, you know, it can appear that I'm incredibly confident, and, you know, I'm not at all. You know, Penny Rimbaud, the manifestation, is a hard one. You know, because Penny Rimbaud, the manifestation, is sort of egotistical and vain and all that stuff.
But you feel comfortable with yourself.
Yeah, because myself isn't Penny Rimbaud,
Mm-hmm.
or any manifestation of my ego. And you know, there's no my in it. Actually, there isn't a self. So, yeah, because those things aren't intellectual. I mean, they're not. You know, in that sense, I don't regard myself as a philosopher because I don't intellectualize as such. You know, and I mean, I'm much more involved with something, you know, which is closer to feelings. You know, so in any statement, what I'm trying to do is to cut through the sort of fibre of the intellect, you know, with something which actually creates a schism, you know, creates a little moment of, that sort of feels strange, you know, strange ideas, which sort of start breaking the construct down. You know, an obvious one is like the appropriate action. If people actually give that any serious thought, and it actually starts happening. Because you have to think it, and then thinking it, it creates it. You know, so there's a lot of sort of jiggery poker, you know, trickery and gameplay in the dialogue.
That's why I told you that I felt lost, or maybe previous to your visit, I would have had hundreds of questions to ask, but rapidly started to fall apart when I started thinking in other things, other stuff, like all this that we've been talking about. And the rest of the questions became almost unimportant to me. Just not wanting you to tell me stuff about records and the lyrics of the songs and who played them.
Well, the thing, I think the key in that is, I think that we intrinsically know that we are each other. We intrinsically know the symbiosis. We intrinsically know our interdependence. You are I, and I am you. That, we intrinsically know it. And it's a fearful, magnificent thought.
Yes.
And it's one that's almost impossible. What the ego wants to do is to make use of it. It wants to try to hang on to some structure, because it knows that it will be crushed entirely the moment one acknowledges and moves out into that domain. And that's very significant. So that all of that sort of sense of, oh no, but
Yes.
I know that. And because actually the ego doesn't know how to approach another being without want. So mistaking, like, yes, I am you, then we confuse. Well, the ego will go, oh yeah, that's good, we can have a bit of sex, or yeah, we can have a bit of a party, we'll use it. But that's not it. And also, if you're coming from, the other side of the fence, one has to be very aware of that. That's what you might be appearing to be promoting. The only way around is to be brutally honest and open about that. But yeah, that's the one. I mean, if we all know that, and we all know that all of this is irrelevant, because we all know we're actually there. We all know that the world is at peace, but we're not allowing it to be so. And I absolutely believe that. It's there and it's finished. It's over. There's nothing to be done, nothing to be said. It's over. Meanwhile, blah 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 blah.